Go for liftoff in T-minus 30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
All systems are at go. All systems are at go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.
Hey, howdy. How are you? Welcome. I'm TC. This is my not just my show. This is my platform. This is MBRR Media, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment podcast. So, thanks if you're tuning in from here from the metropolitan area of Spring Valley, Minnesota. We'd love to have you. And this is an endeavor on my part to get people to think local and act local. Everybody who knows me knows that's an incredibly important topic to me. I have been to multiple city council meetings now, and it's much to the chagrin of many people on the city council. I'm pretty sure they roll their eyes when I walk in sometimes. But anyway, there's what's he coming in here for now? What did we do? What happened? What did we do? But yeah, AVA, you are the first. You are first, AVA. Yes, Patrick Dennis, this is really live. That means you are required, sir, to send money. But yeah, so this is my platform, and this is what we do here, right? So thanks for tuning in. I want to give a big shout out to my show producers, the Angry Vet from here on YouTube, and I also want to give a shout out to IMAF from Subscribestar for being a show producer. For those of you that don't know, I launched channel memberships, official channel memberships on YouTube a while back, and we're working on doing that on Rumble as well. So after this is done, this will be going up on Rumble as well. So if you'd like to become a Rumble channel member, please hit that button and do that. And then find a way to show me how much you love the content and keep supporting us by pushing this out. Thank you to all the channel subscribers. Thank you to all the channel members. There's too many of you for me to name by name. And I don't want to put anybody out on blast who is like surreptitiously trying to support me, but doesn't want any of their friends to know that they're affiliated with me. Yesterday marked the 5-year anniversary of the show, of the channel, of the, of what I do. If you haven't had a chance to go back and watch that, I would encourage you to do so. I did a few minutes of my first ever interview conversation with somebody outside as a man on the street discussion during a lockdown protest, and just put it this way, there's a day and a night difference from the very first interview I did to where I'm at now with people when I'm interviewing them. If I look like I'm trying to stay in frame, it's because we're doing this whole landscape thing today to see how it works, because this pushes it out into different feeds than the portrait. So that's why we're doing it this way. I'm going to bring Justin in just a second. I want you guys to know that I've known Justin for a long time. We've really got to know each other pretty good over the last couple of years. The guy's got guts, because this is his second time coming on with me. And I, as you guys know, we did a town hall thing. Well, Justin did a town hall thing, and I went and streamed it live. And I went back and watched through it again, and I said, man, I have got a great idea for a show. I said, I want to call it Mayoral Meanderings. And I want to bring you on, and I want to talk at the very least once a quarter about your town hall meetings, because Justin has this plan. He wants to do town halls. And I said, then I think after a week or two, after you've had time to digest what people are talking about, we should come back and review it. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to bring Justin in. He's going to tell us a little bit about why he is doing town hall meetings for the first time in over 30 years in Spring Valley that we've been able to ascertain, by the way. Like over 30 years, no mayor, nobody else sitting in an elected servant's position in the city of Spring Valley has actually done a town hall meeting. So we're going to ask him about what prompted him to do that. And then we're going to highlight a few minutes of, or a few sections, excuse me, of the town hall meeting. And Justin's going to give us his thoughts on that. And you know me, there will probably be feedback. So without any further ado, well, I don't. What looks better, Justin? You think you like that better? You like that better? Number one. You feel like you're getting your eyes checked. Number one or number two? Which one?
Either way, I don't like looking at myself, so you can do whatever you prefer.
Well, I think I speak for the whole world. I think you share the same feeling about yourself that the rest of us do.
Yeah, I believe
feedback. So. Feedback says side by side looks better. So Justin, thanks for being willing to do this. And just so everybody knows, I don't use titles for people, so he's not going to be getting Mr. Mayor throughout this. I don't.
And to be honest, I appreciate that. You know, when people address me as Mr. Mayor, I'm looking around to see who they're talking about, because it's not fitting at all. I prefer Justin.
Well, or, you know, whatever name you're going by on any given day.
Yeah.
So whatever you're identifying as in the moment. Dad, grandpa, no grandpa yet, right? That we're aware of.
No.
Okay.
No, thank goodness. I quite honestly, we're not having any more children. I'll just be frank, but I do enjoy having babies around, so I can't wait for that to happen. But on the same token, it's not time.
No, trust me, it's never time. It is never.
Yeah,
I've been a grandpa for 5 years now, and it's just never time. I mean, you love them, but it's like, how did this happen? Which is a little bit probably like, you know, you've probably asked yourself, how did this happen? Like, so here we sit. So we had you on when you ran for city council a couple of years ago, and you got partway through your term and said, you know what, to heck with it. I'm running for mayor because, gosh darn it, I can make a difference. And so here we sit, you're mayor, and you decide you're going to do a town hall meeting. What was that like? What prompted that? Where did that come from? And what was the broaching the topic? What was that like as you talked to people about it?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I just want to say congratulations on your 5-year anniversary.
Oh,
that's a huge milestone. Yeah.
Or a millstone hung around your neck, depending on which perspective you take. So.
Very true. Yeah. So why did I decide to do that? I think all along while campaigning, hearing things from people on what they felt needed to be changed in our community, I felt it was very important to hold town halls frequently to get consistent feedback and hear people's opinion as we move forward. And at the beginning of the year, at my first council meeting as mayor, I was very clear that Spring Valley needs to be united. I'm not asking people to, give up their beliefs or their values or anything like that. But no matter how different you and I are, we can still find something to unify over, and we can improve by doing so. So I think that will happen the more we're transparent, the more that we come together and discuss these topics and and just get things out in the open and hear what people have to say.
So the first topic, well, honestly, that first night, that very first town hall that you did, I had told people were like, well, what do you expect is going to happen? And I said, either they're going to be like 5 people there and they're all going to want to talk and this was outside of conversations with you. And I ultimately had John Doles on with you, the representative from the city council.
Right.
And just so people understand, the mayor in Spring Valley is not technically part of the city council. The mayor is the mayor, and the city council, they're the voting decision makers. So the mayor does functionally work in some form or another as the executive, and the city council works as the legislative body. And the role of the mayor in Spring Valley when it comes to legislative decisions, city ordinances and codes, is to serve as a tiebreaker if that were to ever arise, correct?
Yeah. I think basically, yes, that would be.
Because
I mean,
you don't vote.
I vote on everything. I do. I vote on everything, and I make motions as well.
You do vote.
Not often, but I do.
I did not know you voted.
I do. I feel like if I did not, then people would not know where I stand, and whether it's with or against council, I think it's important for people to know that.
So you vote, but it's not technically a count until it's like, because there's several methods in the state of Minnesota about or regarding how do I want to say that? There are several types of mayoral position in the state of Minnesota. Some of them are very active, some of them are not. So in your case, you do function predominantly as the executive in the city of Spring Valley, and
right.
And the city council is supposed to be handling the brunt of representing the people as a whole in the legislative action and whatnot.
Right.
So the mayor is distinctly separate from the council, even though everybody's at council meetings and whatnot together. And then we can get it. We're not going to talk about open meeting law and all of that stuff. But you did ask John to sit in with you on that particular town hall meeting to be the representative from the city council side without having to like drag everybody in and hold an official meeting where you were making decisions. And so John sat down with you for that. And the topic of conversation for the night was supposed to be predominantly about which ordinances the participants felt needed to be eliminated, or what needed to be modified, or what needed to be added. And I knew that was going to be an interesting topic for a lot of people, but I was expecting it was going to be like 5 people wanting to complain about everything, or you were going to get a lot of people. And for your first town hall, I think you ended up having 30 some people minimum.
Yeah. So it was far more than I expected to show. I did ask everyone to sign in as they came in, not to say that they were going to speak, but at least so that I could get a better
for tracking them down later for being
at the end of the
dissenting
night.
voices.
Right. So I believe it was 35 that signed up, but after it started, I did see a couple of more people trickle in. So it was between 35 and 40.
Yeah, which for a town the size of Spring Valley, to have 40 people show up to a town hall for the first time in 30 years. Some of that might have been a little bit of like, looky-loo. You're like, let's see what kind of circus is this going to be?
I think a lot of people expected that the community center was going to be lit on fire, and I think they did show up to see it. They wanted to be, firsthand witness of that event, because there was a large number of people that never said a word.
Well, yeah. And then there was, a couple of people that had a large amount of words to say.
Yeah, quality and quantity.
he's such the quintessential politician he is. Quality and quantity, sir. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised to see people out, and even those who had maybe some dissenting opinions from some things that I would share, and even some of the stuff I did share. I love to see people out and active. I love the way, and for those of you who don't know, you could go and you can watch the town hall meeting as a whole, or you can watch my video for the 5-year celebration. I pointed out the aspect that you brought into it, which was, hey, we need to, with any ordinance, any decision the city council is making, we need to be asking the question, and I'm paraphrasing here, is this constitutional, and is it good for the rights and the liberties of all the individual citizens, residents of Spring Valley? And that's a huge step forward in thinking for pretty much any town council, any town, or county board, really. I've been to so many different types of meetings, school board meetings, city council meetings, county commissioner meetings. I've been to countless over the last 5 years. And this is the first time I've had anybody actually even not just make a nod to it, but reference the constitutional importance of understanding what an ordinance does and what it does not do, and how to ascertain the best way to move forward in that regard. Is that something that you have been trying to cling to since being sworn in January? Is that always in the back of your mind when you're sitting down for meetings? Because you made some key decisions at your very first meeting. One of them was to remove the rules and the time restrictions on speaking during public comments.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get more into it as we go through some of the video clips. But what is the point of having the Constitution if we don't abide by it? And some of those things where you tell someone you only have 2 minutes to speak, or you only have 3 minutes to speak. To me, that's really not that important. You can have all night if you need it. Why should I be able to cut you off?
Right. And then as the mayor or city council member, wax eloquent for however long you want during your section. So
Right. No, so I mean, obviously, if someone was going to go on for an hour or so, we'd have to politely ask them to maybe step down, and we can have a conversation outside of the meeting. But if I tell you only have 3 minutes, but you need 4, a minute isn't going to make or break my night. Go for it. Take the whole time that you need.
I want everybody to be aware that Justin said that he was doing his level best to not let me speak at the town hall meeting until there were 5 minutes left on the night. So he did say that. So,
and I did warn you that we're ending at 8. So I'm cutting you off if you continue to speak.
So I just talked to my audience without you. Yeah. So
right.
So what made you pick the topic of ordinances for your very first town hall? Because let's be honest, you had to know that was going to really get people's attention. Like, you could talk about taxes and whatnot all day long, but you picked which ordinances do you think we should get rid of and keep or add. So you kind of opened yourself up there. And boy, you heard about it a little bit.
Jump in the deep end, see what happens. But ever since as long as I've been in office, that is the one thing I hear about. That is the biggest complaint is ordinances. So I thought, well, what the heck? Let's go for it.
You just here I am. Slay me.
I mean, if you're going to run me out of town with pitchforks and torches, you might as well do it now. Don't wait.
It's so funny that you have that perspective of yourself because I've told you this, in personal conversations, and I'm not telling any tales out of school, but you're so laid back and like such a people person, and I'm like, I've been to 2 meetings since December, and one of them I literally yelled at the outgoing mayor. And I just like, could you imagine me as like, no, there's no way I couldn't like there's one, I would never win an election in this town ever again. But you think people are going to run you out of town with pitchforks and torches? Like, no, not happening. But you're too nice in the nicest way.
Maybe that's the Minnesota in me. I don't know.
the Minnesota passive aggressive, you mean?
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So, were you leading up to this? You had some experiences where, let's just be honest, ordinances, in particular, I think of one that having dug into it, the noise ordinance in Spring Valley was very much a personal matter for some people. And it was directed in particular at one person. And when you go back and pay attention to the conversation that took place around that noise ordinance, it's weaponizing an ordinance against a person is what it is. Was that somewhat on your mind as you were looking at having this conversation for Townhall, for your very first Town Hall here in the city? And if it was, how do you propose that we avoid that going forward? Because I can point to several times in meetings over the last 2 years, in particular in one case over a deer being shot out of apparently not in the right place at the right time and yada, 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 where a demand was made of the city council that you put the smack down on this person. And I'm like, to me, that's an incredibly dangerous precedent to even, when I say allow, I don't mean that you silence a person's speech, but to even allow that thought to kind of, wiggle its way, if you will, into the mind of somebody who's been elected to serve the people and do what's right constitutionally, to then have another person show up and demand that you put the smack down and make it hurt in a town the size of Spring Valley. That's a powerful statement, don't you think?
Yeah, it's always interesting to receive demands. I'm just not interested in any sort of witch hunt. I don't want to be involved in that. I believe that we can come together. We can live peacefully. I can disagree with my neighbor, but I can still be friendly with them. I can still, know them on somewhat of a personal level, regardless of what they're doing right or doing wrong. I don't think it's necessary to go after people and to demand that government does that for you.
What do you, looking at governance, and you've heard my, take on this, apart from, I haven't really launched into it at City Council because it's not the place for it. But when you think of governance, the city, the municipality is, in not just my perspective, but foundationally and fundamentally in a proper federalist perspective of how self-governance happens, the city council is to be the most powerful and interposing level of the state, the city state, the school board state, the county state, the state state, the federal state. The city council really should be having the most say if you're following a federalist republic perspective. We should actually be putting the pressure to do the right thing should be more intense on you and the rest of the city council than it is at any other level. And you guys should be having. I are good at English. That you guys should be having the most impact on legislative decisions and how people are living on a daily basis than any other level at all. Whether it be interposing and keeping any other higher level of government from telling people how to live. And I had brought up in my comments at the meeting, making Spring Valley a Second Amendment sanctuary town, city. Because we do have places that are sanctuaries for illegals and sanctuaries for certain types of ideology. And even those things that I disagree with, I support a local legislative body like a city council making those decisions if that's what their people are asking for. So when you are trying to juxtapose this targeted use of ordinances where people are upset with a neighbor over something, and so they come to the city council and they say, well, we want you to fix this for us, and here's how we want it fixed, and you need to do something about it right now. Are you looking at being in a place where you're able to look at a person, and I think this is going to be a good segue to the segments that you wanted to review from the meeting, from the town hall meeting. Are you willing to look at the city council and the people making the demands and saying, I appreciate your discomfort with this. I appreciate your ask on this or the demand on this, but is this in keeping with self-governance and with the Constitution? Is that something that you're looking at being able to say to people and hope that they understand?
Yeah, I mean, if your neighbor's doing something you don't like and it's just a personal opinion, I don't have the interest in getting involved with that. If it's causing you harm, your family harm, your property harm, then that's a whole nother story. So I think it's a case-by-case issue, but absolutely, I don't want to get involved with people's personal lives and their personal disputes with neighbors. I don't believe ordinances were put in place for that reason. Maybe
Right.
some were, but you mentioned the noise ordinance, and that all sort of came about because a couple of years that didn't like someone mowing their yard at 7-8 p.m. in the evening. That's normal activity for Minnesota. It's a busy day and you don't get out to mow your yard and the sun's still out. I don't see any issue with that. I'm not going to write a special ordinance for Spring Valley or for that neighborhood so that there's no mowing happening after 7 p.m.
Right. And only in your neighborhood.
Right. Can you imagine how
Right.
complicated that would be for the deputies to remember every neighborhood and what noise ordinance is in effect in that neighborhood?
Yeah, and then well, we live in a town of what are we at now? Roughly 2,600 people still.
Around 2,500, I think.
25 to 26. Just the idea of being able to okay, how are we going to even break down what neighborhood is what neighborhood? Is it based on streets, blocks? One of the newer subdivisions that has a name, something like that.
Well, and then you get into the complications of, okay, this neighborhood, they want their noise ordinance to be set at 7 p.m. But the next street over, which would maybe be considered another neighborhood, they're okay with 2 a.m. So they're over there being loud and playing music all night long. You're still going to hear it the next street over. It just doesn't make sense.
So I gave you homework for us to be able to do this, and one of them was to point out, certain sections you wanted to talk about, not necessarily critique of individuals. We're not at, I didn't ask you to critique the person speaking, but to bring up the perspective of what this person is asking, what they're saying, and what should be the proper response from the local state, the municipal state. And so I'm going to play this first one, and this is in relation to the junk ordinance, which of course a lot of people have ideas on. What is junk? What's not junk? And so I'm going to play that here. Folks, by the way, the video that we're playing this from is monetized, so we may have to, bear with us. We may have to skip ads after we hit play. I'm not going to apologize. I get trickle-down economic income from my ads on YouTube.
Thank you for what you're doing for the city. I would just like to say, please enforce these ordinances. I've dealt with this one that is never enforced, and I am tired, and it's just not my area, but it's all over town of the junk. I've had people in other towns ask me, what's happening to Spring Valley? It's junk. I've told them when they inspect, I don't care, go in my backyard, whatever. But drive by and that's it. Nothing's done, and the junk never disappears. So I'd just like to have something done with the junk, and maybe inspection before the cleanup day so they have time to do that. Thank you.
So there's a good example of a question about, the young lady that was speaking said, I've told them just come in my yard. By the way, folks, the views and the opinions of TC do not necessarily reflect the views and the opinions of everyone watching or even of Justin. But never just allow any agent of government into your backyard just because, folks. You tell them no. Tell them no. Just tell them no. Okay, but anyway, from there, go ahead, Justin. You had thoughts on this, I'm sure.
Well, and I think that's probably that's probably the largest issue is people know that ordinance, and so they have junk in their backyard. And so when we see a house that looks fine from the front, we don't do anything about it, which, it is what it is. That's the ordinance. Yeah, but it would be highly inappropriate for us to go onto anyone's property so we could see someone's backyard and view the pile of junk that's in the neighbor's backyard. It's unfortunate, but it's unfortunate.
But what do you say to people who are like, hey, my neighbor is, and you knew there were going to be tough questions. Like, I'm not going to, my tough questions don't come by way of yelling. I'm not going to call you names, but not yet. But what do you say to the person who says, my neighbor does not take care of their property?
And this is probably one of the largest complaints I've heard over the years. I'm not going to tell someone to clean up their yard because you don't like it. I don't want to write an ordinance because you don't like it. If there's an issue, there was one person that contacted me and said, well, the pile of junk in my neighbor's yard is starting to invite critters to live in it, and those critters are now coming into my garage, into my home. That becomes an issue. again, back to the idea that your problem is now creating a problem and possible property damage to someone else. And so that is an issue and one that should be addressed. But, it's not my place to say what junk is. One man's trash is another man's treasure. I'm sorry that you don't approve of what's in your neighbor's yard, but it's their right because it is their yard.
One of the, and I don't know, I have to admit ahead of time I forgot what some of these were. One of the topics of conversation that kind of sparked it wasn't debate, but it was some interesting exchange by way of conversation during the town hall, was this idea that if you're not taking care of your property, then you're affecting my property value. And I'll tell people, one, go watch, you'll get to hear me speak to some of these issues. But I point out the fact that property value isn't what people have made it out to be. And I think that's the number one complaint from people. There again, this is me speaking, not as a representative of Justin, but this is just me speaking. Most people, when they speak of property value, they are tired of looking at piles of junk. We all get that way. I have had those concerns in the past myself. But ultimately, really what they're saying is that you're causing my property value to go down. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to sell my house at what I want to sell it for. And what even, very active community members don't understand is that really property value has no impact on the sellability of your home. Nobody looks to see, oh, well, the tax assessment on that house says it's worth $250,000. So you're not. There's no way in the world I'm going to pay you, less than $250,000 for your house, and I'm not going to pay you more than $250,000 on your house. What they're saying with property value estimation is this is what we're going to tax you on, is what the government, the state's perceived value of your home is. The cheeky part of me is like, you should be grateful if your neighbor isn't taking care of their property and it's lowering your property value, because then you're paying less taxes during the next cycle. That's just, I'm being cheeky because nobody likes to look at trash. No jokes about politicians inserted here. Do you think people understand that when they bring up things like junk ordinances and whatnot, that what they're really leaning on is the idea that it's lowering the value of their home, when that's really not the truth, that there's a big difference between property value and home valuation?
No, I think you bring up a really good point. But then also at the town hall, when you mentioned that, and which I'm glad you did, that eventually, if it gets to a point where they're assessed and they don't pay the assessment, their property could be taken from them. I don't think people realize that. And so, like you said at the town hall, do you really want to be responsible for someone's home being taken away from them? And
I was a little shocked. I'm going to say it so you don't have to. I was shocked at the number of people, because I know you noticed, nobody could see it on camera. I turned around and looked at the crowd when I said it, and there were people going, yes, I'm okay with that. That's what shocked me. So, okay, now you can be the good quintessential statesman and say, TC, that's not fair.
No, I don't like that idea. I don't like writing an ordinance knowing that it will be used against someone, so potentially their property is taken away from them. And it could be something so simple that I don't like the flower bed that you created and you put your flowers in it. I don't like it. So I'm going to turn you into the city, and the city's going to, come after you, and then you're not going to pay it. And then, so on and so forth, you lose your property. What a stupid thing to lose your property over. I don't like that. And I don't want to be involved with that.
One of my subscribers who watches on a rather regular basis, Fear Porn, said he's talking about a neighbor. He says they took his original assessment of like 200,000 something and now assessed his property at almost $1 million, and his taxes now went up to over $16,000 a year over a dispute. People, they were upset with him, and they said they're literally going to tax him right out of his home. And that's the reality of all of this, is that property tax assessment is far different than home valuation for selling it. And they can do all sorts of things, and one of them is price you right out of your home by taxing you to death out of it, or, as we talked about at the town hall, assess your property taxes with fees and assessments based on your non-compliance. And in the state of Minnesota, I think there's going to be some reform in the legislature going forward. We're still working on it. They could sell your home out from underneath you, evict you, keep the money that you owe them, and then also keep the money if they sell the property. In Minnesota, this has happened numerous times, and I would encourage anybody in the city of Spring Valley who watched the town hall to look into this. Don't just take my word for it. In Minnesota, if the city or the county or the school district, keep that in mind because the school district has some of the most power in taxation, if they seize your property over an issue, they sell your home. If they sell it for more than what you owe, the state of Minnesota allows the selling entity to keep that money. And you still have to pay off your mortgage. That's what people need to understand. I think
Right.
we've beat
And
this horse. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and I think all of those issues could be totally and completely resolved if you just got to know your neighbor. Go over there and have a discussion. Ask them if they need help. Maybe they're not capable. Maybe they don't have the money to remove the junk. They're not physically able. Go over and have a conversation with them. Ask them if they need help. Problem solved. And you become a great neighbor.
Right, which I think we could all use a lot more great neighbors. And you know my view on that because I shared a poem with you. I want to move on to stray cats. Not the band, the ska band.
I'm Ted Derby, my wife Mary Ellen. We moved into this beautiful city of Spring Valley a little over 12 years ago, and we really enjoy living here, except for one niggly little thing, and that's
It's not me. He did not say my name. I swear to God.
the feral cats.
Or mine.
We live on Warren Avenue, and we have an issue where adjacent residence has felines in the home, and typical of cats, they tend to migrate towards other cats, and they mark their territories with spray and by rubbing their cheeks on wherever they want to mark their territory. Now we have a small motorhome sitting in our backyard, chrome wheel covers. We've had a cat get up on our hood of the Class C motorhome and spray the windshield, and it runs down into the air intake for the air conditioner and the heater. We've had them on our front step, spraying on our glass door.
Tell me when you're done.
Spray on our love seat we've got sitting on the porch.
Whatever you like.
They use my garden as a litter box.
So, okay. I think that's enough because I think at the end he basically asked, what can you do about this? If I remember correctly, right? Because he had brought up the fact that Spring Valley does not have an established animal control division.
Right. So right now, all animal control is done through the Fillmore County deputies. But I would agree, the feral cat issue, the stray cat issue is out of control. It has been for years. And I feel bad for these folks that these cats who nobody is claiming and, are not taking responsibility for are now causing him property damage. I can't imagine getting in a vehicle that a cat has urinated on and it's now in the vent system. That's just awful.
Well, it's because cats know what they're doing, by the way. I'm not cat bashing and I'm not cat lover bashing, but like, if you're a cat person, just know if you die in your house, your cat will take less than 24 hours to start eating you. Your dog will wait weeks. So anyway, sorry. We called this Mayoral Meanderings for a reason. So
I do believe something needs to be done. And, what that looks like right now, I don't quite know. But I do know that there are farms who would take those cats. They're going to chase the rodents out. They're going to keep the little critters that they don't want around the farm away. So, that's one option. But some of these cats, quite possibly, if they're injured or, the quality of life isn't there, I hate to say it, but they may need to be euthanized. And it really all stems from.
We just got taken down. Thanks.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I probably can't use certain words. I realize that now. I'm on YouTube. It really all stems from the well-meaning people in town who feed them, and they're trying to do something nice, and it just has caused a greater issue. And they every year they multiply, and so something does need to be done. And
I'm going to make. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I had an offer from an individual in town, and this is. I apologize to any cat or animal lovers. This is not necessarily my viewpoint. The problem needs to be solved. I'm not saying this is the solution. But I had an individual in town that said, "I tell you what, I'll take care of the problem. You just pay for the bullets." So, there's enough frustrated people in town.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things wrong with that statement.
I know. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying that that's the level of frustration.
I'm not saying I disagree. But
people are frustrated enough that's what they're resorting to is, well, I'll just go ahead and start shooting them.
Suggesting resorting to that. No, we can neither confirm nor deny that anybody has actually resorted to that particular methodology.
Right. Right.
Let's take clarification.
Yes. But that's.
You did not think it was going this direction, did you?
That's where people are at right now. They don't want this problem taking place, and they want it solved. And if they have to take the matter into their own hands, they're willing to do that, which creates a whole nother boatload of problems that we don't want. But there is a solution, and I hope that we can find it and find it quickly.
Fear brings up the point that I made during the meeting, which is like cats or not, cats are the most invasive species in North America. The house cat, as we know it, has no place in the North American ecosystem, and they are single-handedly responsible for the destruction of native species of mammals and reptiles and amphibians and birds and whatnot. And speaking of it from a personal perspective, is that a lot of these stray cats are coming about by people who have cats, and then their cats get in the family way, as we used to say. And then those kittens just get allowed to run free. And that's where we get our stray cat population. And yet we have a city ordinance about having dogs and cats, that the permitting process is and I don't personally think that there should be a permitting process to have a cat or a dog or any other animal, in keeping with living in a semi-urban area. But the hoops that you have to jump through to, for someone like me, and everybody who watches this channel knows, and everybody in town who pays any attention knows how I feel about the permitting process for chickens. But the way that we handle getting chickens allowed on a piece of property in Spring Valley is by far more burdensome to a person who wants chickens than it is for somebody who wants cats or dogs or rabbits or a pet bird of any other kind. And I'm not asking for more restrictions, but I'm saying, you tell me which animal that you're having the biggest problem with in Spring Valley. And there are a decent number of people who have chickens around town. You don't see anybody complaining that chickens are urinating in their parked RVs and causing them, problems. But boy, Justin, you've seen it. I have videos of cats that just trigger my home security system on a rather nightly basis. And one very giant possum, by the way, the largest possum in the history of possums in Spring Valley. But what do we do? And that's it. Self-reliance is what I would say. Self-reliance on those.
But that brings up another good point. The people that are trying to do a good thing and feed the cats, I don't think they realize that they're also now feeding the possums, the raccoons, the other little critters that are running through town, which we also don't want in town. So it's the whole thing is just becoming a bigger and bigger mess all the time.
Right. And just by the way, a lot of those animals are going to be in town no matter what anyway. But now you're having a problem with that particular animal because you think you're doing a sweet thing for that little kitty. And what you're doing is encouraging that animal that might have stayed along the stream corridor going through town to seek out the food that you're putting out 3 blocks away for the cat. And ultimately what you're doing is you're encouraging the raccoon to come around. And by the way, possums, far less destructive than anything else.
Are they?
And they don't carry rabies.
But they're gross.
You do not spend enough time watching possum on Facebook. There are some adorable possums out there.
I'm probably getting myself in a whole lot of trouble, but
you are possum bigoted.
Well, maybe they just look like giant rats.
We can't do this anymore. We can't do this anymore.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. No, you're fine. So, someone that I don't know literally tuned in at just the right time and said, "Based opossum art can be beautiful. They cute." So, but yeah. So let's see. The next one is. I personally suggest that everybody live trap any cats that they may have and find farmers that would be interested in feeding. Having them to feed on their. That's what I meant to say. Let's see. What was your next one? So now we're gonna go forward, and now we've talked about possums, chickens, cats, junk. Now we're gonna go forward, and we're gonna talk about dogs. At this mark. I know this is super exciting for everybody. I know Justin was just thrilled to be doing this on a Saturday. There we go.
Hi, Lynette Raymaker. I'm wondering about dog ordinances in town. First of all, how many dogs any one household can have? At one time, I had heard it was like 3. I don't know if that is so or not. Also, dogs at large, as to how many times you have to call authorities to have it taken care of, and how many times you have to do that before a citation is given. I know in other towns, I read it in the paper all the time, be it Preston, Leroy, wherever. Dogs at large, a citation is given, a fine is put out there. So, because there is definitely a problem with that in Spring Valley. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you had to drop out. Did you hear most of that?
Yeah, I did. I apologize. At first, I thought it was probably all my possum hate speech. I thought I got booted for that. I think it might have been my internet. I don't know.
I don't believe in hate speech, so I wouldn't boot anybody for anything.
Okay.
So, even my channel mods and administrators are like under very strict guidelines about what we boot people for from my channel, and most of that's when they demand money because they have pictures of me that they shouldn't have. But anyway, so what's your response to this? Like, I know I have neighbors that have X number, and I'm not saying this to be snide towards the community member, but because it does take on the air of, I don't like the fact that my neighbor has X number of dogs, so I want you to do something about it. And so what's the mayoral concern in this? What's this municipal concern in this? And how do you address that to someone who thinks it's your job to do that? And do you think the city even has a duty or a responsibility to limit the number of dogs that a person can have on their property? And if they do, how do you determine what's too many? Are Great Danes or Pyrenees mountain dogs, can I have 3 of those and only 3 Chihuahuas?
Right.
I personally think 1 Chihuahua is too many. So Great Pyrenees, I'm like, hey, have 5 of them. I don't care. But how do you address this?
I think I'm less concerned about the number of dogs and more concerned that she's having dogs come onto her property and I believe, if I remember right, attack. Maybe attack isn't the right word, but jumping on people visiting her, and yeah. So if these dogs are strays, that's one issue. If they have an owner, that owner needs to take responsibility for those dogs and keep them on their property. If you want to have 100 dogs on your property, fine, great, but you got to keep them on your property. Don't let them roam the town.
So what's the city's response to that then? Like, you don't have your dog permit, your dog license, so therefore we're going to come and take your dog, or we're going to deal with this dog once it walks off of your property without you and is doing something that it shouldn't be doing. Where does the responsibility of the city come into that? And, or however you want to, how do you address that?
Currently, or what would I like to see?
Well, what's it say currently? Because I'm sure you wouldn't have picked this moment if you didn't know what it says currently. But
yeah,
what would you like to see as well?
So if a dog is found, assuming it's a stray, or maybe it has a collar and it doesn't have a tag, so you don't know who owns it, it's taken and housed for X number of days. I believe it's 7, and it's advertised on Facebook. Hey, we found a dog. If it's yours, please come pick it up. So that's fine, and dogs get out. It happens. We can't fault people for that one time it slipped through the fence. But I think if it's a consistent issue, then there needs to be a conversation that takes place and say, what is the problem? Can we help you figure out how to keep your dog in your yard or in your home so that it doesn't continue to get out? And if it's harassing people, we need that to stop. What can we do to help you
Right.
so this doesn't continue to happen? I think it's somewhat fair to house the animal for the short amount of time, and notify the community that it's been found. But yeah, if it's a consistent thing, we need to have that discussion on what are we going to do to prevent this from continuing to happen.
Right. The next one you wanted to bring up was the noise ordinance, and I know we talked a little bit about noise, but I think in particular, I know you had some very specific thoughts on this. So let's do that.
I am.
Hi, Sandy Selner, and we live at 815
Oh boy. Now there's nothing I can do about it now.
North Broadway, 63, and Highway 16. I do believe there are signs coming into each avenue of town as far as the noise ordinance, that can we please try and do something jake breaking in the middle of the night? Because honestly, well, we live right, and I'm kind of including Pam and Dave on this, Phillips.
Yeah, she just threw her friends right under the
You
bus.
can have your 40 miles an hour. However, semis coming into town, they don't start braking till about our houses, Bluff Brothers, before they'll jake break down. I'm probably not saying the right thing, but down to that 40 miles an hour. And we've got, I appreciate the speed signs by the school, but why can't we have them out on each entrance into town?
Are you talking about the digital ones that show the
Yes,
speed? Okay,
yes. And even if, I know it's hard to enforce, but
Was there more you wanted to play in that, or
No, that's fine. This is a tough one because, and I think someone in the crowd was saying this, or shortly after you stopped it, if not there, that it doesn't matter what sign you put up, what flashing lights you put up. If people want to speed, they're going to speed. I think that's an issue everywhere, anywhere you go. It's not exclusive to Spring Valley. So yeah, how do you stop that? How do you prevent that from happening? And I think the issue is made worse being that we have county highways that come into town and also state highways coming through town. I don't know that they're patrolled as often as they probably should be. Some of that could be likely prevented, but as far as noise, it's really hard. The ordinance does say up to a certain decibel, but how do you prove that? If the deputy isn't right there with the right equipment to test how loud that sound is, how can you prove that later on?
Yeah, I almost said decibel meters,
Right.
and those have to be very sensitive, as by way of calibration to have any kind of positive impact on the issue you're dealing with.
I
You
think
had- Go ahead.
the speed is a bigger issue than the noise, because if they weren't speeding at that point next to her house, they wouldn't be engine braking.
Right.
So
Well, and I think that's actually I I have lived perpetually since I moved to Spring Valley a very, very long time ago. And people still consider me an outsider, by the way. Um, I just happen to be fortunate enough to hitch myself to someone who was born and raised in town. But if I hadn't, people would be like, "You're not even from here." I'm like, I've lived here for 30 plus years. You're not from here. Um,
I'm in the same boat. I had to
Yeah.
marry someone from town in order to be accepted.
Yeah. But I have perpetually lived within a block, if not right on the highway. And it's just one of those things you just don't hear it after a while. It's like living in the approach pattern or the exit pattern for an airport. After a while, you get used to it. It takes you some time, but you do. I think you touched on something in this, in that it's actually people are what they're responding to is the noise. What's the causative of their response is actually the speed. It really is the speed. And as a volunteerist, anarcho-capitalist, I would say actually speed limits in town are probably one of the few places where I think law enforcement should be active, because of the fact that we do want people to be comfortable to be out in their neighborhoods, walking up and down their sidewalks, crossing the streets safely. Yes, take responsibility for yourself and for your children and your pets and whatnot. But I do think that the noise ordinance, more than anything, as it relates to dynamic engine braking, is people are more concerned about speed, and you just can't be everywhere. Like we don't have enough. So for people who aren't aware, Spring Valley does not have its own police force. They contract with the Fillmore County Sheriff's Office. I'm sure Justin probably knows all these numbers off the top of his head, but contract for a certain amount of dollars a year to the Fillmore County Sheriff's Office to have, I think every day you have to have a minimum, what is it, at 18 hours of coverage or something like that?
I believe that's what was the last contract we made with them. It's been like a year and a half now, but yeah, I believe it was 18 hours.
Yeah, so 18 hours of coverage, and that's only depending on what time of the day it is and whether or not it's a weekend or something else. That may mean 2 deputies in the area or 1 deputy in town, and they can also be called away to go respond to something outside of town because they are county deputies, not city police, and they just can't be everywhere at once.
No, I have lived off of 63 within 3 or 4 blocks in all the different places I've lived here in town. And I have heard that noise all day and all night for 30 years. It's nothing new to me. And like you say, you do sort of get used to it. It's, the early morning hours where you wake up unexpectedly and that's what you're hearing. A little frustrating, but you do get used to it. And that's in no way justifying those trucks and their action. Because again, I think it all boils down to speed. And it doesn't matter which direction they're coming from, because you've got the hill on South Section, and that's generally where they start doing their braking, which is a mile north of where they should have already slowed down to. So
well, yeah, it depends on it. You guys had to take, my understanding is you had to take the signs down because of the way they were worded.
I believe so. I I thought of it after that meeting, going out and looking to see what's there, because I'm sure there's still something there, but I have not yet gone out
I
there.
cannot say that I remember seeing anything about dynamic engine braking signs. But there again, they could be there, and I'm just so used to driving by them all the time that
Right,
you know.
and to be totally honest, those are the things I don't look for because my vehicle doesn't need to do that.
Right. Yeah.
And
So self-centered.
but right, it's all about me. But if I'm not noticing them, are semis even noticing them? Because they probably see them all the time and just drive right past them without even thinking twice.
But yeah, most of the time, especially going through small rural, agrarian farm towns, knowing that chances that the local yokel, as we used to refer to town cops, probably nowhere around to enforce it and wouldn't bother anyway. But and that's not a disparaging remark on the Fillmore County Sheriff's Office staff. Not in that moment. It's really just about the fact that what are people paying attention to and in how it's impacting them. And imagine what it would look like if instead of expecting the city to step in to enforce it, you just took an afternoon on a Friday and you just stood out on the side of the road and said, "Hey, truck driver, could you try slowing down before town?" People would notice that. They would know. You look a little goofy, but they would notice it.
Right, which wouldn't be anything more than a typical day for me. It's kind of an interesting place to be in time, because I believe right now we have the most distracted drivers than we ever have, and it's always something new being added to a vehicle. We have smartphones and have for years.
Well, now they're mandating screens in all new cars being built. Just let that.
It's interesting because for the longest time you had to be hands-free in order to use your phone, and now they're just putting a giant touchscreen in all these vehicles. Are you not just getting them back to their smartphone? You're still distracting them.
You're almost better off letting them put their phone up on a mount on the windshield,
sure,
out of the way, because at least they're still kind of looking at the road.
Yeah. No, we are so distracted. There's nothing better than to jump in the vehicle. Like on occasion, I have to work in Rochester, and there's times where I will not turn on the radio, I will not play music or podcast or anything, and just sit in the silence. And there's days where I need that, and there's nothing better than that. There's zero distraction. My eyes are on the road the entire time.
What is this silence you speak of?
I've got 5 kids. I don't get it very often, so when I
and also
when I can.
What is this not listen to podcast you mentioned? If you have that kind of time, you could listen to all of my episodes.
I try and keep up.
That's a lie straight from the pit of hell.
I do.
I swear. I want your vote. I listen to your show. No, I'm kidding. You had one more you wanted to address, which I think is kind of a culmination as we segue into it. It's kind of a culmination of the entire topic, which is how did you, in your homework assignment, how did you word it? Enforcement. That's how you worded it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna listen to a little bit of enforcement here.
I'm Mosher. I live outside of Spring Valley, but I'm a landlord here in Spring Valley, got several houses.
Just so everybody knows, Tom is a former law enforcement officer in the state of Minnesota, in particular with Fillmore County Sheriff's Office. I'll let everybody listen to that going forward.
And I appreciate you guys being here, giving everybody a chance to speak their piece. It seems like tonight you've heard a lot about ordinances not being enforced. I was in law enforcement for 25 years. I was known to be the enforcer on ordinances. In fact, I work a lot of my time in the city of Spring Valley, and I enforce them on everybody. City council, mayor, doesn't matter. You need to enforce your ordinance, or this is what you're going to hear. It doesn't do any good to have ordinances and not enforce them. And I know they take a lot of time and they take money, and that's the big thing why they're not enforced. A city, a lot of times, is not going to take anybody to court. They're just going to walk away from it. And that's what I have heard with, in my case, in the rental inspections. I've heard it from 2 city employees that say we will not enforce it because we can't take them to court because we don't have the money. So my opinion is, if you're you can't just have a bunch of ordinances and collect fees. You got to enforce them, or this is kind of what you're hearing tonight. So that's what I'm hoping you guys are getting out of it too. Whatever ordinances you got to have, they got to be enforced, and they got to be enforced on everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dave Foster, UME. I want to explain a little bit of what Tom said about enforcing ordinances. I've been involved in planning and zoning and city stuff. What you need to look at is, I know it costs money, and that's why we don't enforce a lot of these junk ordinances and all that. City council, you need to start budgeting money every year, so you have money set aside so you can do that. Because that's the only way it's going to get done, is if you have the funds available so you can follow through instead of just giving up at the end.
Thank you.
Can you turn around and charge the homeowner for some of those fees to enforce those? You can't.
I think that's a sufficient. Did you have more you wanted to play?
No, you play as much as you like.
I think I'm going to stop there.
Okay, all right.
For my own sanity. Justin, what's your perspective on
enforcement?
I think that on enforcement, I think Tom made a good point. Like, what's the point of having an ordinance if you're not going to enforce it? Now, go ahead.
I have said that for years. Why do we have ordinances if we're not going to enforce them? I think the idea behind my statement may differ from his slightly. My point is, let's just get rid of ordinances. I mean, I realize we need some. I realize that some are good and they benefit the community. But honestly, hypothetically, all right, I know you take care of your yard. You're proud of your yard. Hypothetically, if we were to completely get rid of the grass mowing ordinance, would your yard change? Would you do anything different?
Well, yeah, but you already know it's because I'm planning on going to prairie grass.
Right. Okay. So pre that decision, would my
granola munching hippy dippy. No, I'm not a hippy dippy type, but no, I would still take care of my property. I don't need, like, I've never needed the city to be breathing down my neck, telling me, here's what you need to do. There may or may not be a video on my channel somewhere where I went around and measured city properties, grass. There may or may not be a video of that.
Yeah. How dare you? But that's my point. There are people who are doing what they feel is right because that's just who they are. And so if you have an ordinance, they're still going to live that way. If you don't have an ordinance, they're going to live that way. And the people who aren't mowing their yard, they're not going to mow it regardless of what you do. So
right, and that brings up the question, or not the question, but the statement that I had made as part of this conversation, because this is where the meeting got very interesting. And I would encourage everybody to go and listen. Is that are we as a community, and I think this applies to anybody who's watching from their town, wherever they are, whether they're in Spring Valley or anywhere else. As a community, are you legitimately comfortable with the reality that if you report your neighbor for not mowing their yard because you decided it's causing some sort of negative impact upon you, whether it be property valuation or property tax assessment, or your neighbor's got strange creatures from Avatar living in their backyard because they haven't mowed for 14 weeks and they're snatching small neighborhood children. Are you comfortable with making a complaint that could result in enforcement, which could end in your neighbor's property being seized from them, and that men with guns and badges would be literally forced by order to physically remove these people from that home, put it on the market, and sell it? And that's what enforcement comes down to in every situation with all of this stuff in any town, in any municipality. How do you address people who are like, no, I want you to enforce these things. I don't care. I want these enforced, no matter what it costs. I would much rather the city spend the money on that than anything else.
Yeah. So, and I would agree that there is an issue with time and money. Not so much money. It does not cost the city that much to enforce any of our ordinances. It does take a lot of time, though, because there's proper ways to go about it, and it could take months for something to get done. And generally, by the time it gets to a point where we're taking them to court, they've done just enough to make it sufficient. So we don't have to take them to court. There's only been one case that I can think of in the last 2 years. It was a junk ordinance violation, where we had to sort of the last step before taking them to court is a public hearing at a council meeting. And there was only one time that I can remember that happening. So generally people are doing the quote unquote right thing before it gets to that point, or enough of the right thing. So I don't think it's a matter of money. Time, yes, more so. But that's only because we're trying to follow the legal process and getting done what has been stated in the ordinance up to this point.
I won't mention the specifics here. I'll leave it for when I'm just doing solo stuff some other time. But one of the statements that was made as it relates to the enforcing of ordinances was, we need to train these people. These people need to be trained. And I walked away from that statement hearing these people need to be trained. And it was said several times. Is it the role of the mayor and the city council to look at in the law enforcement segment that is responsible at the base level for ordinance enforcement to train? Like, to you, what does that image, that statement, what does that provoke in your mind as the mayor, but also as a person who lives here? The concept of training people. What does that? What's the visceral response in you, Justin, when you hear that?
Yeah, the other word that was used was control. It's a very interesting choice of words, because I personally, you can disagree with me. I know you will, and you will let me know if you don't agree. But
not me
personally, I believe that the three most important words in the Constitution are right at the beginning: we the people. So the Constitution was not written to control people. It was written to control governments, to protect people from the government.
You're doing very good so far.
Right?
Keep going. Don't screw this up.
So why? No, maybe I'll just end there. And on a high note.
Yes, very good, Justin. Great. Thanks for being here.
Why would I want to control or train anyone when that's not my place to do so?
Right.
So
I mean, you're not
I-
wrong.
you thank you. You were in the service, right? What branch?
Yes. The Army, 82nd Airborne Division is where I jumped out of perfectly good air. No, I didn't jump out of perfectly good airplanes. There's no such thing as a perfectly good airplane, folks. It's
So
mathematically, physically, and stupid to fly. But anyway,
first off, thank you for your service.
no.
Secondly, secondly, there has been so many men and women that have given their life for freedom in America. I don't believe that they died so that I can control the people of Spring Valley.
There you go.
I have no interest in controlling anyone, and I don't want to tarnish their names so that I can do so.
Wow. You get me all emotional over here.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
No, I'm serious. It's like this is. One second. One second. I'm muting you because I don't want you to interrupt me. Folks, when I tell you, I did not script any of this with Justin, but this is why I respect him. And I have been watching him from afar for a long time. And when I bring him back in, he will attest to what I'm about to tell you. When he got elected the first time, and then when he got elected to mayor, I said, do not think for a minute that I am not going to be paying attention to you, and that when you screw up, I'm going to let you know. And you do not get a pat on the back for doing the right thing. He will attest to that. But without him on screen in the very second, he gets a pat on the back for getting this particular point right. It is not the job of public servants, elected or appointed, whether from the beat cop to the mayor to the governor to the president, it is not the role of anybody in public service to train or to control any free citizen of a municipality, a county, a state, or the federal state at all. And we need 10,000 more voices like this in every single town and every single burg and village and township and city and county and state body of legislation, of legislators across the country. No, he's on the spot. Okay, you're back.
Yeah, no, you did tell me that, and I appreciate that because I need people in my life that will hold me accountable.
You probably just lost the next elections. Wait, did you hear what that Justin guy said? His job is not to control people. How am I going to get my neighbor off his property? I don't know why I'm making people in Spring Valley sound like that. So
I never ran for any office to be popular. I am who I am, and I don't want to change that just to please the different people I speak to. I want people to be able to live happy, successful, enjoyable lives. And, the little bumps in the road between neighbors, that should not be something they're focused on.
right.
Get to know them, enjoy time with them if you can, and you just move on with life. I struggle with people that have bad neighbors, but you can't get along with everybody.
For those in self-promotion time, for those who don't know, I write now on Substack. And I've only shared, I think, one essay over there with Justin, which is one of my most recent ones. But I wrote one a while back, and in it, I said that people need to understand. Like, if you read fiction, to have a good fiction story, you have to have a protagonist and you have to have an antagonist. You cannot have a good engaging story without a protagonist and an antagonist. And sometimes you have to have multiple antagonists or even multiple protagonists and sometimes they all, like, the protagonists work against each other as well. But what we all need to realize in every situation, you are only the protagonist in your own story. In the story of every other person around you, you are their antagonist. So before you look out across the street at your neighbor who you don't like the way that they're doing something, you are their antagonist. You are the bad guy in their story. And if we could remember that in the story as it will be told by the neighbor, when history writes that out, you will be the antagonist. You will be the negative influence in the story that makes that person's story powerful as the protagonist. End of story. That's just what it is. Like, every single one of us are always the antagonist in somebody else's story. And we just won't tell it from that perspective.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you this story. It's not to make me look good. That's not the point of it. So,
well, it's too late. You're already on my show. So
right. So we have a neighbor across the street. Never have really had a conversation with anybody that lives in the home. No interactions really to say. But about a month ago, I was walking back from a council meeting, and the mother, their dog barks at all hours of the day and the night. They don't mow their yard enough. Whatever. I've never dealt with it. It's their property. The mother's standing out in the street, bawling. And so I walk over and, what's going on? Are you okay? One of her children had taken off and she couldn't find him. I said, well, let me help you. And so we walked around a bit, ended up finding the little girl. They got home. And, I don't know them. I still don't know them well. But now she's my best friend because I helped her find her child. I still don't care that they don't mow often enough. I still don't care that their dog barks all night. But at least now there's that connection. That's what more people need to do. Instead of asking me to enforce an ordinance that I may or may not think is silly, get out and help your neighbor. Right. It's, I think you and I are different. We may agree on some things. We probably disagree on others, but we're different, right? But
you sure you want to tell people we might agree on things? Because that can reach the street right too.
It's our differences, you and I, my neighbor, the guy down the street. It's our differences that make us great together.
Right.
We look at differences most often and say, well, you're not the same as me, so you belong over here, and you're not the same as me, so you belong over here. I only want the people that are similar to me in my space. But it's that just creates segregation. It creates numbness. It's the people in our lives that are different that allow us to grow and become something great.
I remember a time, and we'll get ready to wrap this up. I remember a time in my life, and you're probably not old enough to remember this, but you didn't have to be worried about someone calling the cops on you as a kid when you were acting up. Your neighbor, if your parents weren't home and you were acting up, your neighbors would beat your butt. Like, sometimes literally. And then they would let your parents know, and then you'd get it again. And people could say, "Oh, I don't want my neighbors dealing with my kid." Like, folks, no, you do want your neighbors. And I'm not talking about in that weird Karen way, like somebody's grilling in a park where grilling is allowed and the Karen just like freaks out on them because they look different. I'm talking about you want neighbors who give a damn enough about you to watch out for your kids.
Well,
Because that's the same person who's likely to see that you're struggling with something else and offer to help. Hey, you okay? Do you need, like, not trying to be a jerk, but do you have a mower? Like, do you need gas for your mower? Do you need somebody to clean your sidewalk? And, and that's one of the things that in my little neighborhood, I did not use my snowblower at all this year, by the way. I live right in the dead smack middle. Justin knows this. I live dead smack middle of my block. I clean the entire sidewalk, top to bottom. And when I say top to bottom, I am on the steepest hill in town, so it is top to bottom. So when needed, I do clean my entire sidewalk, top to bottom, with my snowblower. And I'll probably just do your driveway while I'm going by as well. And that's not to tell people, look at how great I am. That doesn't make me great. That doesn't make me stellar. That just makes me your neighbor.
Yeah.
And that's how we get back to, honestly, that's what makes America great. Whether you want to say again at the end or not doesn't matter to me. But that's what makes America great.
So
I don't need... Go ahead.
I was just going to say real quick, because I don't know how soon you're going to wrap this up. I could probably end up talking all night if you really wanted to. But
well, we have that problem anyway. So
I want to get this out before you cut me off again. I'm almost convinced you dropped me over the whole possum thing. I can't prove it, but I think maybe. When it comes to enforcements, I like the idea, because right now you look at, we'll go back to the grass ordinance. If your grass is more than 6 inches, we're going to be there. The city is going to be there. We're going to cut it and we're going to charge you X amount per hour. And every time
it's not cheap, by the way, folks. I just want to let you know it is not cheap.
Right.
If the city charges you to mow their yard. It's like $100 minimum by the time it's done.
I think it's like 125 or 150 now, but neither here nor there. My thought is, I love the idea of choice. So here's what we would prefer: that your grass be 6 inches or under. If it's unmanageable for you, the city can come in and mow it for you for X amount. Or you can hire one of our professional landscaping folks in town, and that's X per hour or per time. Or we have a dozen young men, young teenage boys that are looking for some extra cash in the summer. You could hire them for X amount per yard or per hour. Or we're getting this group of volunteers, nonprofit, not city folks, who are willing to jump in at any point to help people. You can contact them and they'll do it for free. I like the idea of choices. Instead of saying, you do this, we do this, you say, this is what we would like to see. If you need help, here's the list of people that can help you. And so, that goes for the junk ordinance and some of the others as well. There's people that are willing to help you. Here's what it would cost if you chose to hire someone, or we have people lined up that can help volunteer and help you with those issues. Right. I have brought that up to a handful of people. They're all on board. They said, get it started. We'll be more than happy to jump in and volunteer.
Yeah,
so we'll see.
I need my steps anyway. I get them all in the morning when I get up to work out. But Justin, so plans to continue your town halls?
Yes, absolutely. This one was late. We ended up doing it in April. I meant to do it in March, but we wanted to include a newsletter in the utility bill, and so things got pushed back about a month. So we're hoping to do another one in June.
I should probably start looking at my utility bills.
You didn't read my letter? I had a letter in that.
Open it up and go, I can't afford this.
You just throw the whole thing. Yeah. So June.
June. Good. I'll be there. I'm sure you're excited.
This one we're still debating on what the topic will be, but I'm guessing it'll be less tame than or more tame, I should say, than
less tame.
Yeah, I don't know if we can find a topic that's.
Are you ready to rumble?
Yeah, we'll set up a ring and you have to wrestle while you're. No, but yeah, we'll certainly be announcing it, and I have to get on it and get it planned and get it completed, because during the May council meeting, I'll announce it officially, date and time and topic. And then also we want to get it back into the utility bills so that those people who do read that letter would be able to get that information.
Yeah, but folks, we will be streaming that town hall live as well, and we will also be having our next step, guaranteed at least our second, if maybe, because I have some thoughts, episode of Mayoral Meanderings immediately following that. And this is open to anybody in Spring Valley who is an elected servant. I hate the term official. Any elected servant of Spring Valley, if you would ever like to come on and have a conversation from the perspective of someone who's elected to be on the city council and represent the constituents, we the people of Spring Valley, and you'd like to sit down and talk about the things that are important and near and dear to you, the invite's always there, as you can see. I will treat you exactly the same. I might even be better to someone who isn't Justin, quite frankly, after his opossum tirade. So but Justin, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and I look forward to being able to do another one following the town hall. We might even ask you to come on maybe even a little bit more frequently to talk about things that the city's facing and dealing with, because I think these issues are important, not just in Spring Valley, but I think they're important to people outside of Spring Valley in their own communities to see, look, this is how we should be talking to people who we elect to represent us at the most local level. So I thank you for your time, and I am going to kick you out so I can close, and then I'm going to start my grill, and I'm going to grill burgers, and I'm going to think about roasting politicians as I do it. Anyway, you had a thought.
Okay. Yeah. One final thought. First of all, thank you for being there to record the town hall. My recording, of course, failed, and I didn't get it, so I am extremely grateful that you were there, and others as well, because the 40 so people that were there, the number of folks who watched that is far exceeds that number. So there's a lot of.
We might be over 2,000 by now. I can look here and see how much. Nope, about 1,500, which is more than the voting population of the city of Spring Valley.
Yeah, and that's amazing to see that people in Spring Valley and outside of Spring Valley are curious on what's going on and what's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So
there was a second
I really
thing.
appreciate your time. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, there was a second thing. I don't remember it now. I'll probably remember it in 5-10 minutes, but
I could sit here for an hour and just stare at you until you think of it.
Yeah, it probably won't come then, but
let me know when it gets creepy.
I think I can leave on my end, right?
And end scene.
No, but thank you for having me on and discussing the town hall further. I appreciate what you do. And again, congratulations on 5 years.
Oh,
Keep
thanks.
it up. Yeah.
I hear there may be something announced this week.
Oh yeah, we could certainly bring that up. And we could probably talk for another hour on why I did what I did, what I'm gonna do.
We'll let you make your announcement, and then I'll
Yeah.
kick you out. And do
Yeah,
my close.
absolutely. So I did decide to write a proclamation for No Mow May, and it
You
will be
are
posted-
requiring that everybody in Spring Valley not mow their yard, or else.
Right. No. Oh man, there's so much we could talk about with No Mow May, and I'm not even necessarily a supporter. There's just so much that people need to know about what's in their yard. So topic for another time probably, and my reasons why another time. But that will be posted to my Facebook, my official Facebook city page, Justin Maliner, Mayor Spring Valley. So we'll get that out there, and all of those who choose to take part in that, that you're more than welcome to do so.
And it's encouraged that everyone pursue their own conscience on that.
Yeah.
Yep. So the city, so you call the city and tell them your neighbor is not mowing their yard this year, is what you're saying.
No. No. Let's. Okay. Here's a challenge for Spring Valley. Let's see if we can go one summer without a single phone call to City Hall about lawn grass not being mowed outside of May.
Outside of May.
You know, yeah. I hope there's none during May. I hope everyone knows. But for the rest of the year, here's a challenge. Don't call City Hall about lawn grass. Instead, go to your neighbor, ask them, do you need help? Is your mower broken? Do you need a gallon of gasoline? How can I help you?
Right.
Do that instead. I challenge all residents to Spring Valley to do that.
Absolutely freaking awesome. Justin, I cannot thank you enough for your time. If you want to sit in the green room and listen to my close, I promise I'm not going to say anything negative about you.
So you're only booting me from this portion. I'm
you can listen in if you'd like. Yeah, you can absolutely listen.
So, I absolutely will. Thank you.
And folks, if you are from Spring Valley and you want the next time you want to take part in this, Justin and we will try and commit to Justin cannot answer official policy questions, but I'm sure he will. You saw him; he answered questions from me today about thoughts on these issues. So next time we do this, folks, make sure you're tuning in, and I'll try and do a better job, just so Justin knows, of having this ready to go, so that we have a date picked, and then we will promote it ahead of time so that people can even send in email questions to me to be able to ask Justin. And once again, if there's anybody in the city, on the city council, that would love to sit down and do one of these and share their thoughts on these issues, more than happy to help you get that out to a wider audience. Justin, you have a great Saturday and a good rest of the weekend, and looking forward to your proclamation this week. I'm going to put you in the green room, and I'm going to close.
Thank you.
Thank you. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in for what I am very happy to say has been a very interesting first episode of Mayoral Meanderings, and I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of them. For those of you that are channel members, I am going to be putting up another episode, another reading of Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. I'll be putting that up sometime tomorrow. I don't know for sure how many chapters that I'm going to be doing. And then after I do that, I will be scheduling a time for channel members to come in and sit down so that we can have a live conversation about Austrian economics and the difference between Austrian and Keynesian and Marxist economics, and why these things are important. And I do believe that our next book for the channel members book club, I think we're going to be tackling The Creature from Jekyll Island. And folks, it is not a thriller or a horror book. It is actually a historical perspective on the founding of the Federal Reserve. And for those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, yes, I'm a nerd. I admit it. I'm a nerd. I can be a little bit of an aggressive nerd, but I'm a nerd nonetheless. But economics is incredibly important because it is part of politics and it is part of how we live and rule or are ruled. So once again, a big shout out to the Angry Vet and to IMAV for being show producers, and my Anonymous, you know who you are. Big shout out to Justin for being willing to take the chance to sit down and talk with me. And for anybody in the city of Spring Valley, once again, if you have questions, you can email me mbrrpodcast@yahoo.com. More than happy to ask questions for you. Or you can reach out to me on Facebook, Todd Pearson on Facebook, and let me know if you have questions for Justin. Make them legit questions, folks. So I appreciate everybody watching. Thank you, everybody who has been a supporter for the last 5 years. And just remember, self-governance. Self-governance means you take care of you, and your neighbor is not responsible for you. You are responsible for you. And sometimes you're responsible for making sure your neighbor can be responsible for themselves without dragging in somebody to make them responsible. I'm not going to end this one the way I normally do, folks, because I don't feel like Sic Semper Tyrannis is an appropriate follow-up to the conversation that Justin and I had today. I am going to tell you, folks, liberty and freedom require responsibility, and that responsibility absolutely 100% starts with you. Until next time, be well.
We are going for liftoff in T-30.
Stand by for further instructions, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment.
Secondary guidance systems engaged.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, it will be on my mark.
And systems are a go. And systems are a go.
Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, you are over the target. You are authorized to fire at will.